Hello there, everybody. Whoever listens to this, um, I'm calling you again on the Facebook or YouTube. Well, I got comments from some of the people who watch these videos or slept through them or whatever, but they were saying one buddy Gary said, "Oh, all I ever do is see you on these political videos that you're making," he says. And I don't mean for these to be political. At least that wasn't my primary concern, or to make them political. But you know what happens when you're talking about stuff, and man is a political animal, and you kind of go into political if you're talking about ethics and morals, and you want to bring it into contemporary times. But a lot of what I think about politically, personally, I feel like I might not be right about. I don't know what the real truth is out there. I don't have any kind of a crystal ball about telling the future, and I don't really know what the right answer is in all these political decisions. And what's more, I think I'm going to do one of these recordings sometime soon that's going to be just political, and then everybody's going to find out how radical I really am. But I don't know what the truth is all the time. I hear these people making all these points in one direction, points in another direction, and who knows what the real truth is about it. So I'm not sure. Some people claim that they know what the truth is about things, and they think they can tell somebody from telling the truth from telling a lie. But I don't think anybody really can tell when somebody's lying or not for sure, because there are some people who are very good liars out there, and there's some other people who aren't very secure and could be telling the truth about things, and they're not as good at telling the truth as a good liar is about telling a lie. So if you put them next to each other, I don't think anybody can really tell a truth teller from a liar. And they have these people that they're lie detector people, polygraph, they call themselves, takers. And I've had one of those before at some job I was going to get. And what those guys, they claim they can read your mind and they know when you're lying and telling the truth. But any scientific study that's been done of these things have shown that they can't always tell who's telling the truth and who's not. It's like an 80% correct, which means 20% incorrect about who's telling the truth and who's lying, which is why they're not admissible in a court of law, because they fingerprints and DNA have been scientifically proven to be very accurate, but polygraphs have not. So nobody can really tell who's lying and who's telling the truth, that even with a machine. But what they do is they psychologically make you tell the truth, because you think you're going to get caught in a lie, so you just tell the truth anyway. But and they have these guys, I see them on TV. They look at the person's body language and they say, "I could tell by the way he's fidgeting his hands. Oh, that's a lie right there." Okay, sure. Some people are just more nervous than others, just in general. So am I lying right now because I'm kind of fidgety? I've always been kind of fidgety. Well, the whole question about what is truth and what is a lie, just like Pontius Pilate used to wonder about it. Who knows? It's something that's plagued me my entire life. You could be telling the truth 100% of the time, and people don't believe you, and it doesn't do you a bit of good, to be someone who tells the truth. And on the other hand, a person that's a good liar, it benefits them a lot that they're good liars. They have millions of dollars in the bank as a result. I mean, as a salesman, being a liar was really very useful. I've been a salesman for years. Was a salesman for years, and I remember in furniture sales, there was this guy who was shopping for a cherry bedroom set. He wanted a solid cherry bedroom set. He kept coming back into the store saying, looking at this bedroom set, and he finally, I said, "Why don't you make your decision? Why are you taking so long?" And he says, well, you know, I can't understand. You guys are, I shopped everywhere, and you guys are $800 cheaper than any place I can go to for a solid cherry bedroom set. And I said, well, that's because it's not solid cherry. You know, it's a cherry veneer with a composite wood in the middle. And he goes, oh. And he walks out and he never comes back, except like about a month later. He says, well, you were so nice to me and so honest and everything, and I wanted to buy a center table, you know, a coffee table for my bedroom, but it doesn't have to be solid cherry. It just has to match color-wise with my bedroom set. So he brings in the drawer from his new solid cherry bedroom set to show me what it looks like so he can get himself a coffee table. And I look at it and I say, look, this is not solid cherry. This is a composite. Look at it. It's a cherry front on this, but it's the plywood on the side, and it's some other hardwood. And he gets like a really all frustrated looking and walks out, you know, and never buys anything from me. Now, the lesson here is the guy in the other furniture store charged him more money for what was not a solid cherry bedroom set, and he got the sale. And thus is the world of business and capitalism. You know, you cannot get ahead, and there's a new ethic in America, I think, that says if you can lie, you're going to be one step up on the next guy. You know what I mean? But you know, people say, well, it's a sin to lie. You know, you ever hear that one? But it's not really in the Ten Commandments that you can't lie. It doesn't say thou shalt not lie. It says thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. And you know, like Donald Trump did. You know, he's a very rich man, and he did that without blinking an eye. He made up this story about Barack Obama. It's not like he knew for a fact that Barack Obama wasn't a citizen. I mean, who knows if you call in anybody's existence, you know, where were you born? Let me see your birth certificate. You know, you can't believe anybody about anything in that case. You know, but he came out and said, I have some people investigating showing that he was actually not born in the United States. Well, that is bearing false witness against his neighbor. And, of course, what does he care? He's a rich guy. That's a new ethic in America. Just lie. You know, and I don't even know what to tell my son about this exactly. You know, he was playing tennis in the 7th grade tennis team a couple of weeks ago, and he was playing against this kids from a big city, and he won the first 3 games. He and his partner, they were playing doubles, won the first 3 games. So they mark one game and they switch sides, and they win the next 2 games. They go to mark those and switch sides, and the kid on the other side said, well, that's 2-1 now, he says. He says, what do you mean? He says, well, you guys won that last game, but we won the one before, right? He says, no, we won all 3 games. And he says, no, I think we won 1 and you won 1. I said, no, you didn't. He held his serve. My partner held his serve. And his partner, this little kid, I don't know, he didn't want to get in any fights, so he just like being quiet. Tell him you won that game. I don't want to fight. So the coaches come over and say, what's going on over here? He says, well, he says that he won 1 and I won 1 in the last time, and I think we won all 3. We won all 3 games. And because I say we won 1 and he won 1. And my son yells real loud, well, he's cheating. He's a liar. He's cheating. And he said, well, come on. Why can't you just say each one won, the coach tells him. He says, because he didn't win 1. You know, that's a lie. He's cheating. And I don't want to play with a cheater. He throws his hands up in the air, yells, I quit. I'm not playing with a cheater. He stomps off the court. He comes up to me and says, come on, Daddy, let's go home. I'm not playing with these people. And the mother of his teammate comes over to me and says, well, can't you do something? My son wants to play. So I go over. I don't want to be one of these dads like in the soccer games that start punching out the other dads or something. I just said, Max, can't you figure something out? I mean, and the coach is saying, oh, they have to work something out for themselves. So he goes back out onto the court, and they say, okay, here, we'll just go back to 1-0, okay? And played. Well, he ended up losing the set 6-4, which means if he had not given that kid a game, they might have won the set. Oh well. What do you tell your son, in that situation? Say, you're supposed to put up with other people's lies. Because I was watching, it was 3-0. And the coach on his team comes over to me and says, well, you got to pick your fights, she says. And I says, what do you do when you know somebody's screwing you? Do you just take it? I mean, that's a good question. Because throughout my entire life and throughout a lot of people's lives, you get these people who are just cheaters and liars, and what are you supposed to do about it? They don't tell the truth, and they can tell a lie without blinking. It's as if in the long run, if you look at it, a lot of those folks are doing quite well in life, and a lot of the people who have been honest and decent and tell the truth end up on the bottom, and they end up hard up, and they could end up living under a bridge. It doesn't do you any good to tell the truth in life. It's a kind of like an old-fashioned ethic, it seems like, from back in the Middle Ages or something, when people lived in a small town and everybody got to know each other pretty well. Then if a person got to be known as a liar, then that person would have a reputation throughout his entire life as a liar, and nobody would trust him. But in this world, where there's 300 million people, and if you lie and get caught in lying and cheating in Cleveland, you can move down to Dallas and start over. Take your ill-gotten money and move down to Dallas and start over and be an upstanding citizen down there. And then if you cheat again and get caught, then you can move to Seattle, and start over there, and you'll live a good life. And there's lots of people who do that. It's the new way. Anyway, we were driving home, my son and I, and he says, well, Dad, I don't know what to do. A guy lies and he wins. And I said, well, don't lose your integrity over a lousy tennis game. That's his problem. If he's going to lose his integrity over a tennis game, then he's going to go throughout his life without any integrity. But you tell the truth anyway, I told him. But I'm a little, I don't know. In the commercial world, I'm nobody to be giving my son any good advice, obviously. I work for a company. They were a big corporation, international, and we went to these conferences. There were teleconferences mostly, where I had to sit out pull into a cornfield somewhere and dial up this number at a certain time of day. And there was an international conference, and everybody was listening in on their cell phone. It was somewhere in Ireland, and there were a big auditorium full of people at the corporation. They were singing a company song and everything. We love the corporation, and they give this, the CEO comes out and gives this real Mickey Mouse speech about how we should all be loyal employees of the corporation. Loyalty is very important, and we look for loyalty in our employees, and we foster it, and we appreciate loyalty, and that's what makes this corporation grow, is good, loyal employees. And, whenever they laid us all off and we all ended up, without a job, were they loyal to us? We were loyal to them when they said, oh, you're going to have to work an extra 10 hours. You're going to have to work an extra 8 hours. You're going to have to work till 3 o'clock in the morning and drive all the way down into southern Ohio in a snowstorm. Well, I'm a loyal employee. I'll do what the corporation wants. But when the time came, they laid me off and just shook my hand and said, tough luck, buddy. We can't be that loyal. Because what they're talking about is I'm supposed to be loyal to them. They're not supposed to be loyal to me. Well, they're just lying to me, And I know they're lying to me, and they know I know they're lying to me, but that's the way the game is played, in the capitalist world, I guess.